UCLA is a university with unlimited possibilities for students that desire world-class academics and research, unmatched diversity, incredible cultural and social opportunities, successful alumni and career networking, first-class campus facilities, plus America's top intercollegiate sports teams. Located in Westwood, just a few miles from the Pacific Ocean, UCLA's 1 square mile campus is surrounded by famous cities such as Bel Air, Beverly Hills, Brentwood, and Santa Monica.
Welcome to another edition of UCLA Bruin Talk, where we take you inside the world of UCLA athletics. I'm Courtney Casso alongside Nick Mohajer, and today we're going to be talking UCLA tennis and track and field with men's head coach of the men's tennis team, Billy Martin, and men's track and field assistant coach, LaMonte Vaughn.
First, let's take a look at some upcoming events.
Our first guest with us today won a national title here at UCLA as a student athlete and is in his 17th season at the helm of the men's tennis team and 26th season overall as part of the Bruin coaching staff. Head coach Billy Martin had an illustrious junior career and is considered, pretty big title, the best junior tennis player of the century. We're very proud to have him. He was named the ITA National Coach of the Year in 1996. And his team in 16 years has finished in the top 5 at the NCAA championships. So, Coach Martin, thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, always fun to be here.
First, I want to talk about your team just qualified for the ITA National Team Indoors this past weekend. Talk to me a little bit about how you qualified for that and what that tournament means.
Well, it's really the second biggest tournament of the year, in my opinion, because it brings the top 16 teams to one site. To fight for the championship besides the NCAAs. So it's a good chance for us to see the other top teams that we might not be able to see until the NCAA championships in May. But 2 years ago we went to a qualifying sort of way of getting into the tournament. Instead of the top 16 teams being invited, you have to win one of the 16 regional tournaments. We were fortunate enough to be able to host, but had a tough regional tournament. Hawaii and Pepperdine, the two strongest teams that we had to play. Hawaii, we played in the finals of the NCAA regional tournament last year. Pepperdine's always a very strong team. I think they're ranked 17th in the country. But we had 2 good wins, which qualifies us now to go to Virginia in a couple weeks. And quite honestly, with the rain we had a few weeks ago, 6 days of no practice, I was quite worried. Having the guys practice down in lot number 7 in the parking lot, hitting against the walls, sort of ducking the cars that were coming. Yeah, it was nerve-wracking.
I bet.
Now, one thing, actually, you mentioned the rain. That's actually been a big factor here recently. The weather in Southern California normally isn't this bad, but like you mentioned, you go down to lot 7. How do you practice when the weather turns against you like that?
Well, not well.
Not well.
Really, probably the first time in, I'd say, 15, 20 years where we went more than 3 days without practice.
Wow.
I've tried for many years to have an indoor court, put up at UCLA. One of the back 2 at UCLA we came very close. It would just give us an opportunity for the guys to hit at least a half hour, an hour, with all the different teams, UCLA men's and women's tennis. But it just never happened, unfortunately. But people look at me and say, why do you need indoor courts? But that's a perfect scenario.
Yeah.
We're right in the heart of our season and we go 5, 6 days. Boy, it can be disastrous.
Well, yeah, I completely agree with that. I didn't like walking to class in that rain either. It wasn't fun. But one other thing that we mentioned before was that your teams have finished in the top 5 of the NCAAs every year since you've been a head coach, which has been 16 years now. So how do you manage to keep the team competing at such a high level every single season?
Well, certainly difficult, but
Yeah.
I think I really try to challenge the team and every year let them know that they can't just rest on the laurels of the previous teams and the tradition here at UCLA men's tennis. I certainly felt a lot of pressure coming in as head coach from Glenn Bassett to J.D. Morgan to Bill Ackerman, those 3 coaches that did a great job of always having UCLA tennis be one of the premier teams in the country. But that's it, challenging the players. Certainly when I recruit, I really like to recruit competitive young men that really want to come in and take the challenge, not just be a front runner, but to maybe have the inner workings of taking that challenge and really going with it. 2008 was a great indication of that. I think we were really looked at as probably being out of the running for the Pac-10 and the NCAA championships. We ended up winning the Pac-10 semifinals and NCAAs. Probably one of the greatest years for me as coaching.
Wow.
You just mentioned some pretty legendary names of coaches that you follow in. Bill Ackerman, J.D. Morgan, Glenn Bassett. You're one of 4 coaches in our entire history of UCLA men's tennis, and you've done pretty well as a coach. National championship, National Coach of the Year. How does it feel to be part of such an elite group?
Well, yes, I feel there's a lot of tradition. Ackerman Union, the J.D. Morgan Center, Glenn Bassett, who won 7 NCAA championships. I think I certainly don't feel like I've accomplished all that much when you look at what those 3 have done previously, and then you have coaches like John Wooden, Al Skates, Adam Krikorian. I don't think you can ever get too big a head around UCLA, but certainly I feel like there's a tradition that I have to try to live up to as far as men's tennis and UCLA, but that's a challenge, and I've always been a very competitive person myself. I think that's why I like college coaching. I like the game day jitters. That keeps me going. So if you enjoy that, college coaching is really fun.
And no matter how long you've been in that field, wouldn't you agree that every year you've got a new group of kids, you've got a new season, you've got the same game day jitters? Every day is like a new season for you.
Oh yeah, so true. The dynamics of every team is so different. The personalities, how guys are going to react, the young with the old, and vice versa. So yes, it's like a new puzzle every year, and you just got to see how those pieces are going to fit in. That's what makes it fun, and not knowing, going to bed, wondering what the heck's going to happen. But again, if you like that, it's
running
great.
over plays in your head as you sleep. It never shuts off, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, there's so many things that you can't control.
Yeah.
The guy's going to pass classes, this and that. But I seem to like it, and it's a challenge. So I'm going to hopefully continue to do it.
Now, you were a student here at UCLA yourself, and you had a pretty successful career early on here. You actually won a national title as a freshman. So having that early success in your career, does that kind of help you relate to your athletes a little bit? Since you come in as a freshman, win a national title, do you kind of use that story to help build some rapport with your own freshmen that come in?
Yes and no. I mean, that would seem like dinosaur times to a lot of these kids now, over 30 years ago. But I think, I would never really mention that myself. I think they've maybe heard of that, or at least I would like them to know that I played professional tennis, and I have a feel for that, and I know what it's like, and I know what they have to do here at UCLA if they even want to have a chance to reach that dream of playing pro tennis. And we're fortunate enough to have some players that come in that want to be pro tennis players, and that allows me to push them a little harder than someone who wants to play college tennis but is probably going to go into business or another field. So we have a lot of kids that have that dream on our team. Makes it extremely easy for me to push them to sort of a new level physically, mentally, and that certainly helps us have a better chance to win an NCAA championship.
You mentioned professional tennis. I mean, you had a successful college career, but then you went on to play pro tennis as well. So how did you make that transition?
Well, I think most kids, including myself, actually dabble in pro tennis a little bit when they're in college tennis during the summers, or they might leave to go play a tournament here or there, which is still legal NCAA-wise,
Yeah.
probably a little tougher now than it was in my days, but you want them to do that. You want them to go out there and maybe get beat up a little bit and come back with their tail between their legs, you know, and say, yeah, I've got to work a little harder, Coach.
Yeah.
You're right. This is what I need to do. So even their losses at the college level or losses at the professional level, I think bring them down a little bit humility-wise, and they're willing to work a little bit harder and know they're not maybe ready for pro tennis. A lot of kids come, I want to turn pro in a year or two.
Yeah.
And I say, you know, let's see. You know, play a year of college tennis, go out there in the summer, see how you're standing up. The worst thing you want to do is go out there and when it's too early and get beat up. Your confidence goes down, and I've had a lot of guys do that, and I probably, you know, that's the thing I probably recommend that they don't do. Just wait until it's really ready, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or after you graduate.
Right, because you'd want your athletes to have a realistic portrait of what they're going to be up against. You don't want them to just go blindly with, you know, maybe they've won a college title, I'm the best, then go out there and say, okay, we're all very good this year. We're all on that same professional level.
Yeah, there's definitely a false sense of security a lot of times. You know, such a big difference between college level and the pros. Although a lot of the kids make a great adjustment and are ready. And you have a James Blake and a few other scenarios that, you know, played a year or two and went in. We had Mark Knowles, a young man from the Bahamas that played for us for 3 years. He's still top 5 in the world in doubles, doing quite well. But it's a big adjustment, and it's a big adjustment because you're out on the road 30, 35 weeks out of the year. If you're monetarily, you can't afford to have coaches and trainers and mom and dad, you know, this whole group of surrounding people, it can get a little lonely, especially if you're losing.
Yeah. And you just mentioned how often you're on the road for tennis and how many games. Tennis is kind of a unique collegiate season in the sense that you guys play basically from October through May. A lot of other teams have their season in the fall, then they get their spring off, maybe a spring season. What is your off-season training like? You don't have a lot of it, but what is it like?
Well, definitely fall is our off season because we have no team matches in the fall, just individuals, and that's you know, tennis and probably golf are a little unique in that you have your individual, for us singles and doubles, and then team titles, and we actually play the NCAA championships all together, team first, and then individual singles and doubles. But it does extend our season, but allows us to train them, which I think is helpful for us as coaches. But we do a lot more, you know, weight work, a lot more running, maybe a little bit less tennis in the fall, trying to get them a little stronger, a little better shape, and it kind of keeps it from being the same routine for 9 months compared to when we come back in January. We're really hot and heavy into, you know, team matches and really only focusing on winning. The fall, I'm not so, you know, stressing winning as much as filling in the holes of their game and trying to get them to improve.
Got it.
Now, going back to your professional career, just for a second, I mean, I know you actually competed in Wimbledon in 1977. You made it to the quarterfinals. So kind of competing on a big stage like that in high-pressure situations, does that make you kind of explain to your players what it's like to be in a big match like that and kind of try to calm their nerves a little bit before they go into a big game?
Well, I'd like to. I think until you experience a situation like that, it's just so hard to get somebody to really realize what it's like walking out onto a center court at Wimbledon. I mean, that was my first match on the Wimbledon Stadium court, and I was, you know, certainly not in the best frame of mind. I'm looking up and around. But we talk about it. You know, for us, it would be a comparison of going up and playing at Stanford or USC at their stadium with the crowd. That's usually the thing we have to talk about the most. You know, you get a couple thousand people that really aren't rooting for you, but against you, fraternity brothers that are probably not going to say the most kindest things towards you or your family or whatever. So that's what we try to talk about.
You mean the crowds at other schools are not nice?
Oh, no.
That's
But that makes it kind of fun, and it gets them tougher. You know, we say we don't want rabbit ears, which is, you know, trying to listen to every little thing that's being said. You know, let it go in one ear, out the other, and just stay focused. And the minute you let them know that they're kind of getting into your psyche, I think they'll keep firing it more and more. So you just got to try to be sort of really, you know, blinders on, not let it bother you. And that's not easy, especially I find in freshmen don't handle as well as sophomores and sophomores. You really like having those juniors and seniors that have been through those battles on away courts against hostile crowds going into those kind of matches.
Well, Coach, we wish you the best this weekend with the team national indoors and with the rest of the season. And in following with J.D. Morgan and Bill Ackerman, I hope to one day see a Martin building here at UCLA. So, Coach, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, we're going to meet the man behind the Bruin sprinters, hurdlers, and relay team, men's track and field assistant coach LaMonte Vaughn.
After this brief public service announcement.
A trophy can be made just about anywhere. But there's one place where champions are made. UCLA, champions made here.
Welcome back to UCLA Bruin Talk, where we take you inside the world of UCLA athletics. I'm Courtney Costo, along with Nick Mohajer, and today we're going to be talking about UCLA track and field, specifically with the men's assistant coach, LaMonte Vaughn, who's in charge of making sure our sprinters, hurdlers, and relay teams are the best in the country. But first, we're going to talk to Nick and hear about our Athlete of the Week.
This week, we honor Anna Lee of Gymnastics as our Student Athlete of the Week. And to meet with Arizona State and Poly Pavilion, Anna's 39.45 score earned her first place honors in the all-around. She also won 2 individual events with a 9.925 on the uneven bars and a career high post of 9.95 for floor exercise. Anna's individual victories inspired a team effort that brought the Bruins to new heights with season high marks in 3 events, including the uneven bars. The team also came within 0.05 of its overall season high team total with just over 196 points. As the meet was coming to a close, Anna's floor routine helped widen the narrow gap between the Bruins and the Sun Devils, driving the team past the competition. Anna's dedication and ability to push through in the clutch have helped lead the Bruins to a 5-1 record. Congratulations, Anna, and good luck to the rest of the gymnastics team. If you'd like additional information about UCLA athletics, just visit our website at www.uclabruins.com.
Our first guest with us today is the men's track and field assistant coach, LaMonte Vaughn. And Coach Vaughn, as I mentioned earlier, is in charge of our Bruin sprinters, hurdlers, and the relay teams. LaMonte is a good Southern boy, born and raised in Tennessee, graduated from the University of Kentucky, where he ran track. Specifically, the 400 and the 800 were his specialty. He spent the last 4 years at another Pac-10 school, the University of Washington, where he coached his athletes to break 9 school records and won a 2008 Pac-10 title with his 4x1 men's relay team. So quite a coaching career, and today we've got LaMonte. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So this is your first year at UCLA. What does it mean to you to be a Bruin?
This is such a special place. It has such tradition, especially in the sprint events. The Olympians, the level of coaching here, it's just an honor to be the next step in the evolution of this program, starting from such a high place.
So the season is barely underway, but how does the team look so far? You know, are you seeing them progressing, and how does it look to you?
Yeah, we're looking good right now. I think, you know, until we see them in the uniform, competing at a high level, you know, you just don't know yet. But practice, we're learning how to practice with purpose. We're learning how to practice with strength and intensity. And that's the things that I'm looking forward to seeing this weekend when we open up our season.
On our website, every now and then we've got little blogs or announcements from our coaches, and you've written some, and you've mentioned stabilizing the athletes' lives off the track. Talk to me a little bit about what that means.
I'm about 3 things. I'm about graduation, I'm about our young men making mature adult decisions consistently, and I'm about training to win championships. And we can't train to win championships if we are inconsistent in the classroom or in the community. So stabilizing those 2 things will take care of our athletic performances.
I feel like a lot of people forget how important academics are to the student athlete. You're not just here to be a student athlete, especially at UCLA. This is a very academically challenging school, and you've got to be well-rounded in order to stay in school here.
Yes, you do. It is a competitive environment. It's no different from their athletic careers. This is a highly competitive institution. This is a highly competitive conference. This is a highly competitive country. And if they take those same attributes that they have in the classroom, on the track to the classroom, I think we'll have not only NCAA champion level athletes, I think we'll have Rhodes Scholars and 4.0 GPAs. That's what we're looking for.
Well, actually, this year we've got a number of new coaches on the coaching staff. Now, the head coach being Coach Mike Maynard from Boise State, and he's already made some major improvements and, is really getting the team off to a good start. What do you kind of hope to bring to the coaching staff, especially directly towards the sprinters?
My job is to, number one, make sure that Coach Maynard is elevated to the highest level as a head coach. That is my first job, and whatever he needs me to do, albeit academics, being rules enforcement, what have you, I need to make sure that that's done at a very high level. Specifically towards the sprinters, I need to get them competing, recruiting at a high level. I need to get them competing at a high level and training at a high level. So that's what I hope to bring to this intensity, to bring character and leadership to the sprint hurdle program.
Rules enforcement. So you're kind of you're making sure everybody's in line. I like that.
I'm not the guy you want to see when it comes to academics.
So you're coming off as a very nice guy, but I have a feeling you are very about your business when it's on the track.
I am. I'm about the three things. I'm about just making sure they graduate, making good mature adult decisions consistently, and I'm about winning championships. So I kind of am the person that's on the line, making sure they toe the line.
Nice. And your season opener was at the University of Washington, which is your old stomping ground. So I want to know first, for you personally, what was that like to be back there? And then what was the team energy like in their season opener?
Well, we only had a few middle distance runners run there. I didn't get a chance to go back, but I'm looking forward to going back for the Mountain Pacific Sports Federation Championships. I expect it'll be a little strange. There's still a couple of young men and young women that I recruited and coached on that team, but it's championship season, so when the lights go on, it's about making sure the Bruins are crossing the line first.
Now, actually, UW's coach Metcalf had mentioned that that the track up there is actually, it's called a fast track. So, you hear that sometimes, that some of these tracks might have physical properties that make them a little bit faster to run on. So how do you feel about that, and do you look forward to competing at places with tracks that might make your athletes run a little bit faster?
I'm looking forward to competing in any place we can run fast. Okay. If we're not fast, the track's not fast. That's the way I've always figured it. But I don't get into that. I try to take the excuses out. Some people use it as an excuse. Some people use it as motivation. I just say, point A, point B, get there before everybody else does.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yep.
Being on the UCLA track team, it definitely is a team sport, but it's highly about individual performances. Track is a pretty individual sport. And not all athletes travel to different tournaments, and like you said, in the season opener, only certain athletes went. I would think that would serve as really good motivation for the other athletes to try to make that competing squad. Is that, do you notice that?
Yeah, that's kind of the gist of what we do. We've got about 55 or so men on our team, and not everybody gets to travel. I tell my sprinters all the time, if I want that uniform to mean something, I just can't put anybody in it. So it's going to be very competitive to put that uniform on because of the history of the uniform. Jackie Robinson wore that uniform. Otto Bolden wore that uniform. Mike Marsh and Kevin Young, they all wore that uniform. So I just can't put anybody in it. So you have to train and compete and live at a very high standard in order to have the privilege to put that uniform on.
I love that. There is such a history with UCLA athletics, and in terms of civil rights, I mean, beyond the world of surface athletics, so much history goes into that, and it should mean something. You don't just put on that uniform. It's a privilege, and you should earn that.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I mean, that's the great thing when we tell recruits, this is not an institution where we're hoping elite level things get done. It's the history and it's the expectation of the school and of the program. So I think that's an advantage for a place like UCLA, and it's like no other place I've ever been.
Speaking of competition, we've actually got the NAU Team Challenge coming up this weekend. So what are your expectations for the team there, and how do you hope they do?
I want us to compete at the highest level. I'm not worried about times right now. It's an opener, so there's going to be a little bit of rust. Some guys haven't competed in almost a year, so I'm just looking for wins. It's competitive spirit this week. We'll go back, look at the film, and we'll correct our mechanical errors when we go back to practice next week. But right now, I want to see the fruits of our competitive labors right now.
You mentioned film, actually. In a lot of other sports like football, basketball, they watch a lot of game film to see, break down the other team's performance and their performances. Is that a big thing that you do in track as well?
Yeah, we look at that. I want to see, the film and the watch don't lie. If we're making mistakes, I want to see them, but I also want to see what we're doing right. and build on those things. I tell the athletes all the time, I'm not trying to emphasize your weaknesses. I'm trying to maximize your strengths. And if we maximize your strengths, we'll minimize your weaknesses anyway.
And LaMonte, we mentioned earlier, born and raised in Tennessee. You've coached at Marshall, which is a historic athletic program, the film We Are Marshall. And you've lived, you tell me, where have you lived? And now you're in LA, so let's talk a little bit about that.
Since my wife and I got married in February of '98, we've lived in Titusville, Florida, Huntington, West Virginia, back to Lexington, Kentucky. I coached at Eastern Kentucky for 1 season, and then Seattle, Washington, and now Los Angeles. It has been an incredible journey. I'm still relatively young, getting ready to turn 36, but I've been coaching.
That's young.
Yeah, I've been coaching for almost well over 10 years now, and it's been an enjoyable experience. And this is just the next chapter. The great thing about this job, I mean, even my mentors from the University of Florida and South Carolina and places like that, they all said, hey, this is a destination for coaches. This is not a goal, or a stepping stone type of job. This is a destination. So it's very humbling to be here. Just looking back on it, it's an incredible journey and a great story. Maybe I'll write a book one.
What a ride, yeah. I'd love to hear about that.
How do you like your destination so far? I mean, you've gone to all these places. How does LA feel to you so far, and how are you enjoying being a Bruin?
Not bad for a Southern boy. I'm really enjoying it, getting used to it. My wife and I are kind of, homebodies every now and then, but we're becoming a little bit more social butterflies a little bit. This is bringing a great thing out in myself and our family. It's been a great experience, and we've been embraced by the Bruin family, and we appreciate everything that they've done for us to this point.
That's great.
You've mentioned in your website blog or announcement or whatever we want to call it that you don't necessarily work on goals, you work on directives.
Yes.
I love that philosophy. So tell us about what that means.
My father always said, goals are what might happen, directives are what must happen. And I know we must graduate, we must make mature adult decisions consistently, and we must win championships here. That is the standard. So goal, I don't really think about those much. It's, when I come in, it's about achieving objectives and directives on a daily basis.
That's going to wrap us up today, but look, Coach Vaughn, thank you so much for being here today and telling us about your journey here to LA. We're really happy to have you on the staff.
We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
We wish you all the best this weekend and in the rest of the season.
All right, thank you.
So that'll wrap up another edition of UCLA Bruin Talk. For my co-host, Nick Mohajer, I'm Courtney Casso. Thank you at home for joining us. And our men's track team practices and competes at Drake Stadium. So come out and support the team this year. We'd love to have you. And for more information, you can check out www.uclabruins.com. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time here on Bruin Talk.